After being shoved off a yacht for 3B, I revealed a life-changing secret that inspired my family. Thomas could hardly believe it, an invitation to celebrate his childhood friend's billion-dollar business deal aboard a lavish yacht. It felt surreal, like a scene stolen from the movies. The brilliant glow from the chandelier-lit deck reflected off the calm waters, and laughter echoed above the faint hum of luxury. But beneath that gust of exhilaration, a knot twisted in his stomach. He was a mechanic, a working man from a humble background. The glitz surrounded by a stark reminder of his own struggles brought nothing but discomfort. Could he truly belong in a world of opulence? When he boarded, he spotted Jake, his childhood pal turned millionaire. They were inseparable as kids, forging dreams with innocent ambition. Now, Jake's life seemed like a distant galaxy, a beacon of success that magnified Thomas's own discontent. The celebration was extravagant: golden bottles, extravagant ice sculptures, and guests adorned in elegant attire more stylish than anything Thomas owned. He felt like a fish out of water, and each glass clink just deepened the rift. Suddenly, laughter turned sour as a heated argument broke out. Jake's voice rose, sparking a chaotic atmosphere. Thomas stood frozen, clutching his drink like a life raft. "Don't push me," he heard Jake shout, sending a shiver down Thomas's spine. Moments later, he felt a shove, a hard and forceful nudge that sent him tumbling overboard, splashing into the icy embrace of the sea. The cold seeped into his bones, and shock waves of betrayal washed over him. As he rose gasping, drowning in confusion, the weight of undeserving spiraled through him. Who was he to be in this fancy world? His self-worth shattered like glass beneath the crushing waves. As Thomas swam back to the yacht, bitterness boiled inside him. But the nagging thought of family tugged at his heart, grounding him. His tight-knit community had always lifted him in times of turmoil. Climbing aboard, he didn't look back. He knew he had to go home. Back in the neighborhood, under the flickering street lamp, surrounded by familiar faces, Thomas found solace. That night, he shared an ambitious thought with old friends: what if we could revitalize our auto shops into thriving businesses? What started as a mere idea turned into fervor as they whispered dreams of independence, of challenging the economic divide that had long kept them trapped. Underneath the stars, everyone rallied, their passion igniting flames of hope. But as their project gained momentum, cracks began to show at home. Tension crept in like an unwelcome guest, misunderstanding tearing at the seams. Thomas, lost in a storm of emotions, retreated into himself, afraid of the chaos spiraling his family apart. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In his solitude, the importance of unity and forgiveness weighed heavily on him. Doubts clouded his mind as he realized he needed to confront his old friend, face the anger that had festered. Standing there, at a crossroads of vengeance and resilience, he understood that love, community, and hope were his true wealth. Would he recognize it in time, or would bitterness keep him bound to his past? The uncertainties raced through him like a storm, eager for resolution but leaving only questions lingering in the air. The day dawned heavy with expectation, a crisp chill hanging in the air as Thomas stepped outside. The sun peeked through, casting a warm glow that felt almost hopeful. He inhaled deeply, his chest tightening as he thought about the confrontation that lay ahead. He needed to talk to Jake, to untangle the confusion that had settled between them like a thick fog. Determined, he grabbed his worn jacket and made his way toward Jake's new office building. The towering glass structure felt imposing, a stark reminder of their diverging paths. As he approached, memories of their childhood washed over him, two kids playing in the park, dreaming of their futures without a care in the world. Now, that carefree boy felt like a ghost, lost somewhere beneath the burden of adult life. Upon entering the building, the contrast of the sleek interior intensified his apprehension. Laughter and shouts from polished businessmen filled the open space, a world he barely recognized. He took a moment, collecting his thoughts, before pressing the button for Jake's floor. The elevator ride felt endless. Each ding of the passing floors echoed with doubts. What would Jake say? Would he even care? But deep inside, Thomas knew he needed to do this. The old friendships meant more than any faceless dollar amount or yacht party that he stepped out into the buzzing hallway, the atmosphere thick with ambition. Spotting Jake through frosted glass, a huddle of men surrounding him, Thomas's resolve flickered. Would they laugh at him? Would Jake laugh at him? Taking a deep breath, he knocked firmly, and when Jake's assistant waved him in, he stepped into the fire. Jake looked up, surprise flickering in his bright blue eyes. Tommy. What were you doing here? Can we talk? Thomas's voice was steadier than he felt. Sure, Jake said, dismissing his guests with a wave. The door clicked shut, leaving the two old friends standing in silence. For a moment, the air crackled with tension. Memories hung thick between them, the joy and pain interwoven like threads of a tapestry. Thomas found his voice, cutting through the uncertainty. What happened out there, Jake? That shove. It felt personal. Jake's expression shifted from confusion to defensiveness. You were embarrassing me. I'm not the kid you grew up with anymore. I had to make a stand, to prove I'm worth something. Worth something? Thomas echoed, disbelief creeping into his tone. By pushing your friend overboard? I didn't mean it like that. This world, it can be ruthless, Jake said, exhaling slowly. I've lost myself in all of this. It was a moment of honesty, and Thomas felt a flicker of empathy battling against his anger. I understand the pressure, but is it worth losing sight of who we are? Who you are? Jake looked down, shame coloring his cheeks. I just wanted you to be proud of me. To see me as more than just your old friend. I thought I needed to show I'm successful. True success isn't measured by money, Jake. It's about how we lift each other up, not push each other down. Look at where I am. I'm trying to change things for my community. I want to help, not just for me, but for all of us. As Thomas spoke, he could feel the wave of hope rise in both men. Conversations they once had as boys started to resurface, a vision of unity that had faded with the years. Jake finally looked up, eyes glimmering with unshed emotions. Are you saying you could actually forgive me? We need to forgive each other, and we need to fight together. A long sigh escaped Jake's lips, and he nodded slowly. Then let us do it. But just as the air grew lighter between them, Thomas received a buzzing notification on his phone. It felt ominous, breaking the fragile moment. The message read, "We need to talk. It's urgent." Thomas's heart sank. He felt that familiar dread pooling in his stomach, even as hope flared beside it. What now? Was another storm brewing just beyond the horizon? He shared a determined glance with Jake, knowing they had come a long way, but storms weren't always far behind. Would they find strength in their reunion, or would another push send them both tumbling again? Thomas frowned at his phone, the urgency of the message sinking into him like a lead weight. He glanced up at Jake, whose expression mirrored his own turmoil. The warmth of their moment felt fleeting, replaced by an electric tension that hung in the air. What's wrong? Jake asked, concern etching lines on his forehead. It's a text from a colleague. Something urgent came up with the community project I've been working on, Thomas replied, forcing a calmness he didn't feel. Is it bad? Jake probed further, stepping closer. I don't know yet, Thomas admitted, wrestling with the knot of anxiety tightening in his stomach. But it feels important. Let's take a look together, Jake suggested, a sense of camaraderie igniting between them once more. We got through the last storm by talking things out, right? Grateful for the support, Thomas nodded. Yeah, you're right. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this alone. As he opened the message, a chill washed over him. The details inside were stark and alarming. The town was facing severe funding cuts. They were considering slashing community programs that provided food, shelter, and education. A gaping hole was about to rip apart everything they had been striving to build. "What does it say?" Jake asked, his blue eyes darting with concern. "They're planning to cut funding for a lot of the projects I've been overseeing, the ones that help the most vulnerable families." Thomas's heart raced as frustration bubbled within him. "This is everything I care about. What have I been doing?" Jake's expression shifted, his brows furrowing in thought. "We need to act fast. If they move forward with this, it'll be a disaster." "Exactly. But how do we even tackle something like this?" Thomas felt the weight of helplessness settling in again. "Let us rally a group," Jake suggested, an idea sparking in his mind. "Get everyone involved, the families, local businesses. Show them what's at stake. You're not alone in this. It won't be easy," Thomas said, a flicker of hope nudging against his doubts. "No one said it would be, but we're in this together, remember?" Jake's voice held conviction now, firming their resolve. An overwhelming wave of gratitude washed over Thomas. As they worked through the possibilities, a sense of purpose surged between them, intertwining with the threads of their past. Memories of shared dreams began to morph into the possibilities of a shared future. "Let us give them something to think about," Thomas said, the embers of determination igniting in his chest. "Let us schedule a community meeting. Get everyone hooked into what the real stakes are." "We can't let this slip through our fingers without a fight," Jake replied. A plan began to form, their heads nodding in unison. As they stepped forward into the chaos of ideas and hope, another notification brought Thomas tumbling back. The phone buzzed again, another message from the same number. "Wait, there's more," he said, apprehensive as Jake peered over his shoulder. Just as Thomas was about to tap the screen, the door swung open, and an older man stepped in, a well-dressed figure with a familiar face. "Excuse me, gentlemen," the stranger interjected, his tone sharp and alarming. "But I believe we need to talk, especially about that urgent funding situation." Thomas and Jake exchanged glances, a new wave of uncertainty cresting. Who was this man, and what did he know about their plans? "Who are you?" Thomas asked, instinctively protective. The man's eyes glinted with a mix of authority and urgency, the kind that immediately set off alarm bells in Thomas's mind. "Just someone who can help and hurt." With the last words echoing ominously between them, Thomas's heart raced again, the weight of uncertainty bearing down harder than before. What secrets was this man hiding, and how could he possibly fit into their déjà vu of challenges ahead? Would he be a mentor, an enemy, or something much worse? The man stood there, his presence commanding and unsettling. Thomas felt a shiver creep up his spine as he studied the stranger. There was something in his sharp gaze that made him uneasy, like he could sense every vulnerability Thomas held close. "Who sent you?" Jake asked, his voice steady, showing none of the apprehension that Thomas felt. The man paced slowly, as if considering his answer. "You must understand, this funding situation isn't just a matter of numbers. It's part of a much bigger game." "Game?" Thomas echoed, disbelief creeping into his voice. "This isn't a game. We're talking about people's lives here." The man turned his intense gaze toward Thomas. "Exactly, people's lives. This is precisely why the powers that be aim to dismantle those programs. It's never just about the money, it's about control, influence." "What do you mean?" Jake asked, his brow furrowing as he shifted slightly closer to Thomas, creating an unspoken bond of support. "Let's just say some people prefer the status quo. Your community projects disrupt that flow. I can help you put a stop to these cuts," the stranger offered, his tone shifting to a low, persuasive whisper. Thomas clenched his jaw, torn between disbelief and a dwindling flicker of hope. "And what's the catch? How do we know we can trust you?" The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You don't. But time is running out. If you want to save your programs, you'll need allies in high places, people who understand the stakes. An idea began to form in Thomas's mind, but he knew he had to approach it carefully. He thought of the desperate families relying on those community programs, the children who would go hungry if funding were cut. What do you want in return? Just a seat at the table. I need influence, and you need support. It's a simple exchange. The man's confidence filled the room, wrapping around them like a snake. Jake exhaled sharply. This could be a trap, Thomas. We don't know anything about him. The room felt heavy with tension, the opportunity almost palpable. But Thomas couldn't shake the unease in his gut. What does it mean to have you at the table? He asked finally. I can help you gather evidence, build a coalition to fight back, the man responded, his voice steady. I can even expose those behind the cuts. But remember, once you involve me, there's no turning back. Thomas shared a glance with Jake. The stakes had never felt higher. The idea of abandoning their mission was crushing. But at the same time, aligning with a man like this came with risks they couldn't ignore. Give us a moment, Thomas said, turning away to huddle close to Jake. In the privacy of their corner, he whispered, what do you think? Can we afford to take this risk? Jake was silent for a moment, weighing the options. We don't have a choice if we want to make an impact, but I don't like it. It feels wrong. Thomas's heart pounded. They needed a miracle, and here it was, wrapped in an uncertainty that could turn disastrous. But if we refuse him, what if we lose everything we've fought for? We have to think of the families. But we also have to think about our integrity, Jake countered, running a hand through his hair. I don't want to look back one day asking what we sacrificed for a win. Just as Thomas opened his mouth to respond, the stranger interrupted them. Gentlemen, time waits for no one. Are we in this together, or do I leave you to the mercy of those who've already decided your fate? Thomas's mind raced. The weight of their decision felt like a boulder on his chest. We need answers, he finally said, meeting the stranger's gaze. But we'll need to do this our way. Fair enough, the man replied, a glint of approval in his eyes. They stepped into the dark territory of alliance with a potentially dangerous man. Thomas couldn't help but wonder, was this the beginning of their salvation or the first step down a path they might never return from? An unsettling thrill coursed through him as he prepared to face whatever lay ahead. And in the back of his mind, a question lingered, how far would he be willing to go? To protect those he loved most. The air was thick with uncertainty as Thomas turned back to face the stranger. The man's confidence was unsettling, yet it ignited a tiny spark of hope inside him. It was a dangerous gamble, but isn't all hope built on some level of risk? Let us do it, Thomas said, the decision pouring out of him like water from a broken dam. He felt Jake's grip on his shoulder tighten, an unspoken concern wrapped in loyalty. The man's lips curled into a knowing smile. Excellent choice. We can't waste time then. He moved to the side, beckoning them closer, his demeanor shifting from intimidating to a man who had keys to rooms they'd never known existed. I'll give you the contacts you need. But I want you to dig deeper than just surface-level fighting. We need to expose everything, the ties, the money flow, the names of those pulling the strings. What if we get caught? Jake asked, the skepticism creeping back into his voice. Is that something you can protect us from? Consider it part of the game. Your integrity is at stake, but so are those lives you mentioned. The man paused, his gaze piercing through the doubt that loomed over them. I can promise you one thing, if you stay true to your cause, you'll find allies who will have your back. Thomas exchanged a glance with Jake again, feeling the gravity of the moment. What's next? First, we need to gather evidence. Follow the money, talk to those who've been shut down or threatened. I'll introduce you to a few key players. They've been waiting for someone to breathe life back into this fight. What if we can't trust these people? Jake pressed, his protective instincts flaring. Everyone has their own motives. Just be careful who you attach yourself to, the man cautioned, a flicker of something darker crossing his features. Trust is a luxury we can't afford right now. Thomas swallowed hard. This was entering territory that felt reckless, slightly insane even, but they had no choice. Okay, let us do it. Good. I'll set the wheels in motion. The man pulled out his phone, tapping quickly across the screen, while Thomas's heart thumped heavily in his chest. He felt like he was tumbling down a rabbit hole, and it was exhilarating and terrifying at once. Minutes later, the man finished typing and looked up. I've made arrangements for you. Meet me tomorrow at dawn in front of the old library. Don't be late. Wait, Jake said, holding up his hand. We don't even know your name. A dark grin spread across the man's face. Not yet. Consider me your shadow for now. With that, he turned and strode out, leaving a blend of hope and apprehension hanging in the silence. Thomas felt the weight of the world on his shoulders as they stepped outside into the cool night air. What have we signed up for? He breathed, his voice barely a whisper. Jake ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident on his face. I don't like this, man. I wish we could just go back to how things were before all of this. Back when everything seemed simpler. Thomas replied, feeling the wound of reality press heavily against them. We can't go back. We have to fight for what's right, and that might mean embracing the discomfort coming our way. They walked along the sidewalk, dim streetlights casting long shadows behind them. Each step felt more burdensome than the last, filled with the pressure of what lay ahead. As they reached a crosswalk, Thomas paused, looking up at the stars scattered across the sky. Their light felt like distant beacons, almost mocking him. Do you think we're strong enough to handle this? I don't know, Jake said, his expression a mix of worry and subtle determination. But we owe it to those families, to ourselves, to at least try. Thomas took a deep breath, squeezing Jake's shoulder tightly. Then let us prepare. Tomorrow might just be the moment our fight truly begins. With the tension still lingering like a shadow over them, they headed home, unaware that the following day would bring not only challenges but revelations that could shake the very foundation of their resolve. As Thomas lay in bed that night, sleep eluding him, one thought echoed in his mind: how far would they really go for justice, and what would they sacrifice in the name of hope? Dawn broke with a thin veil of fog clinging to the ground, as Thomas stood on the worn steps of the old library, fists stuffed deep into his jacket pockets. The weight of anticipation settled in his stomach, churning with uncertainty. He scanned the horizon for any sign of the shadowy figure who called himself their guide. Are you sure we're doing the right thing? Jake asked, pacing slightly beside him. His breath fogged in the cool air, a swirl of doubt as palpable as the mist around them. Trust the process, Thomas replied, offering a tentative smile. We're here to uncover the truth. That has to count for something. But Jake's shoulders remained tense. I know, but it feels reckless. We're diving into something bigger than ourselves, and I don't want to lose you in the mess. That sentiment hung heavy between them. They had faced many battles together before, but this was different. This was about revealing corruption that ran deeper than either of them had imagined. As the library doors creaked open, Thomas's heart raced. A figure emerged, cloaked in the shadows of the building's overhang. It was the stranger, still shrouded in mystery. He surveyed them with a cold, calculating gaze, seeming more a harbinger than a helper. Right on time, the man said, an almost predatory smile creeping across his face. Let us get down to business. Thomas followed as the stranger led them down the street, not wanting to lose his grip on the small thread of hope igniting within him. They walked in silence until the man finally broke the tension. We need to hit several locations today: bars, rundown cafes, anywhere the whispers of corruption linger. Your first stop is Jimmy's Tavern. He has connections. Connections to who? Jake asked, an edge of suspicion creeping into his voice. Those who know the money trail, the man replied. And they won't talk to just anyone. They need to see that you're serious, willing to risk something. What does that mean? Thomas leaned in, his curiosity unquenched. Prove your commitment to the cause, the stranger stated matter-of-factly. Take a leap of faith. Get creative. Or, as your friend worries, reckless. The weight of those words fell heavily, stretching out before them like a chasm. Jake's eyes darted between Thomas and the man, assessing the risk. What kind of creativity are we talking about? A show, perhaps. The man leaned close, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Create a scene, something that garners attention. Draw out their connections. Show them you won't back down easily. Thomas inhaled sharply. You're asking us to act like troublemakers. Disturb the peace, if you must. It's about getting them worried. When they see that you're a threat, they'll start to talk. Fine, but I won't put anyone in real danger, Jake said, his voice firm but wavering. We can't cross that line. I don't want you to, the man replied, stepping back, hands raised. Just give them something to remember you by. Their path lay before them, strewn with uncertainty, but beneath it, a flicker of excitement began to form. A scene, chaos, the irony of how life could sometimes be a stage. Could they act? Could they be that daring? As the tavern loomed closer, Thomas felt the pulse of the day quicken in his blood. The stakes were high, their resolve was becoming a living thing. Hungry and wild, they stepped through the door to the smell of stale beer and the distant sound of laughter, eyes drawn to the corners filled with shadowy patrons. Were they ready to get on this stage? Here we go, Thomas murmured to Jake, adrenaline racing through him. He could sense the weight of potential. This was where it could all begin, or come crashing down. In that moment, Thomas realized they were already in deeper than they'd ever planned. What would they sacrifice to escape the silence of complacency? Just then, a loud argument erupted from the back of the tavern, hot tempers sparking a volatile situation. A flicker of certain chaos was igniting. Was this the chance they had been waiting for? With hearts pounding and courage flickering like candlelight, they moved towards the chaos, ready to reveal the hidden truths that had long been obscured. What awaited them at the end of this reckless path? The argument grew louder, amplifying the tension in the air. Thomas exchanged a quick look with Jake, their eyes wide, both sensing the pulse of chaos that beckoned them. The tavern's patrons were now glancing toward the commotion, drinks forgotten, their laughter replaced by a shared anticipation of the spectacle. Should we do something? Jake's voice trembled slightly, a mixture of alarm and determination resonating within him. Let us listen first, Thomas replied, inching closer to the source of the disturbance. The scent of spilled beer and sweat mingled in the thick, heavy atmosphere. In the far corner, two men stood toe-to-toe, faces reddened, fists clenched. One man, a broad-shouldered figure with a tattoo snaking down his forearm, shouted something unintelligible, while the other, a wiry man in a leather jacket, seemed more composed, but the disdain etched on his face showed he was far from calm. Here's our chance, Thomas whispered, his heart hammering against his ribcage. He had no idea what would come next, but the thrill of possibility ignited a fire inside him. Suddenly, the tattooed man shoved the other, and the crowd gasped collectively. It took only an instant for the bartender to intervene, pressing a hand to the chest of the tattooed man, who bellowed, "You think you're better than me? You better watch your back." "Let this play out," Jake urged, already eyeing the patrons gathering around, as whispers began peppering the air. "This is it, let us make them notice us." Thomas nodded, flaring with adrenaline. "All right, on my count," he said, a tingle of excitement running down his spine. 3, 2, 1. With a swift movement, he stepped forward, raising his voice, trying to draw attention. "Hey! Is this a tavern or a wrestling match? Because if it's a show, we all want front row seats." The crowd turned, surprised at the unexpected outburst, laughter bubbling up as they shifted their gazes to Thomas and Jake. Jake, catching the momentum, added, "We came for the drinks, not the drama. Maybe save this for later." The tattooed man turned, anger flickering in his eyes, but the tension in the room began to shift, laughter surfacing as the atmosphere lightened. With the patrons' attention diverted, Thomas could see the gears turning in their minds, their curiosity piqued. Would they talk? Would they reveal the secrets they held? It worked! Jake exclaimed, a grin plastered on his face. But the relief was swift, the tattooed man wasn't ready to let it go. Enraged, he approached Thomas, his shadow falling over him like a dark cloud. You think you can just walk in here and play the Joker? The man growled, stepping dangerously close, his breath hot and laced with beer, heart pounding. Thomas realized this was the pivotal moment. Inescapably tied to the recklessness that was now woven into their intentions, he had to decide how to navigate this fine line between bravery and folly. We're just here for the truth, Thomas said, meeting the man's gaze with a defiance he barely felt. You know things, and we want to hear them. The laughter among the crowd faded, replaced by a thick silence, the weight of expectation pressing down on them. Would this be the breakthrough they'd hoped for, or had they just taken a step too far? The tattooed man smirked, narrowing his eyes. Truth? You want the truth? You really don't know what you're asking for, do you? As he stepped back, Thomas felt the air shift, tension coiling tighter, and he knew they were standing on the edge of something monumental. What lay ahead would either propel them into the depths of corruption or leave them gasping for air, the consequences lingering like a shadow. In that moment, Thomas wondered if he was ready to handle what was to come. What more would they risk to bring their hidden truths to light? The answers lay just beyond the horizon, flickering like the illuminating dawn. The tattooed man stepped back just a fraction, his expression shifting from anger to intrigue. Thomas could almost see the cogs turning in the man's mind. The crowd held its breath, caught in this electric moment, hanging onto the edge of a revelation that could change everything. Truth, huh? The tattooed man said, drawing out each word. You think you can handle it? You two boys look like you're just out for a laugh, sipping on your cheap beers and watching the show. With that, he eyed the bar, a half-empty glass of whiskey reflecting in his gaze. What if I told you the truth could lead to more mess than you can clean? Jake swallowed hard, glancing at Thomas, whose pulse raced, edging on panic and excitement all at once. We can take it, Jake said, his voice firmer now, the adrenaline pushing him forward. Whatever it is, we're not backing down. Back down. The tattooed man barked a laugh that sent stares flickering back and forth through the crowd. You don't even know what backing down means when you're in a world like this. You think you can just waltz in here and demand the truth? That's exactly what we're doing, Thomas asserted, surprising even himself with the hard edge in his voice. He felt something shifting within him, a renewed sense of purpose that countered the earlier waves of doubt. We're tired of the lies, tired of pretending there isn't more to this place than what meets the eye. You hold the cards, so let us play. The tattooed man paused, a glimmer of respect or perhaps interest flaring in his eyes. He leaned back slightly, crossing his arms over his chest, his posture no longer as threatening. All right, you want to know? He said, nodding toward his companion, who still wore that sly smirk. Let us talk, but be warned, it could get dark. There was a murmur of anticipation from the onlookers. Thomas and Jake exchanged looks, the kind that spoke volumes of uncertainty wrapped in exhilaration. What darkness were they about to unveil? Follow me, the tattooed man said, turning away and heading toward a narrow hallway leading toward the back of the tavern. The crowd began to part, making way as intrigue cascaded through them all like ripples in the water. Thomas took a deep breath, feeling Jake move beside him, their footsteps echoing on the creaky wooden floor. What if we're in over our heads? Jake whispered, clearly struggling with the weight of the decision to chase after the truth. Then we deal with it together, Thomas replied, feeling a surge of resolve. Whatever was waiting beyond that hallway, he wouldn't face it alone. As they reached the end of the corridor, the tattooed man stopped, turning to them with a newfound seriousness. You better be ready, he said, eyes piercing into Thomas, as if gauging the sincerity of their intentions. You have no idea what you're asking to be part of. Jake glanced at Thomas and nodded, a small gesture of unity. "We're ready," he declared, and the tattooed man's smirk returned, almost dangerously playful, but just as Thomas felt the thrill of the moment pull him in, there was a loud crash from behind them. The crowd had shifted, shouting filled the tavern once more, blending into a chaotic symphony. The tattooed man's focus broke, eyes darting back toward the main room, and suddenly they found themselves caught between two worlds, one filled with shadowy secrets and the other, a consuming chaos. "What now?" Thomas asked, alarm coursing through him. "We're not done yet," the man breathed, his face clouded with worry, and then he glanced back toward the pandemonium, the truth they sought lingering just out of reach. What would they uncover in this tavern? And what risks awaited them when secrets collided with the chaos of the crowd? Thomas felt the weight of uncertainty settle over them, chilling yet enticing. Would they have the courage to seek the truth amid the rising storm? The tattooed man took a decisive step back, his gaze locked on the chaos behind them. As the shouts grew louder, a deep furrow formed across his brow, and something unspoken flickered between him and the pandemonium. For a brief moment, Thomas saw a hint of fear in the man's hardened facade, a vulnerability that contradicted his bravado. "Stay close," the tattooed man commanded, his voice low and urgent. Before Thomas or Jake could respond, he turned sharply and broke into a steady jog down the hallway. Thomas and Jake exchanged glances that spoke of trepidation and determination. They followed, the sound of their footsteps mingling with the echoes of the bar's tumult. The corridor opened into a dimly lit back room, filled with shadows and the scent of stale smoke. A single flickering bulb hung from the ceiling, casting eerie shapes on the walls. Old posters of rock bands and faded tattoos adorned the peeling paint, relics from a time long past. Thomas felt the weight of the moment, his heart racing, as the tattooed man stepped into the space. "Welcome to the heart of it," he declared dramatically, but the seriousness in his voice cut through the bravado. "This is where the truth lies and where you'll wish you hadn't," he asked. "Just tell us, man," Jake urged, taking a step closer. "What do you know about this place? We can handle it." The man's expression morphed back into that sly smirk. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes glinting with mischief. "You've got guts, I'll give you that. But guts don't always win in a world like this." He paused, drawing in a breath, then continued, "What you're after isn't just the whispers of the tavern. There's a whole network, a web that connects people, secrets, and, yes, power. You two are poking a beast that doesn't like to be prodded." Thomas's stomach nodded. "What kind of power?" "Power to change lives," the tattooed man replied, his tone darkening. "People come here looking for escape, for connection, or to bury something from their past. But know this, boys, you can lead a life of truth, or you can be swallowed by the lies. What you decide next will ripple far beyond this tavern." Jake shifted uncomfortably, his bravado wavering for the first time. "We came here for answers. But what does that mean for us?" The tattooed man studied them for a moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. "You want the truth? Fine. This place is a gateway to a larger reality. There's a criminal circuit that feeds on the vulnerable. They're not just dealing in goods but in lives. If you want the truth, you'll have to get your hands dirty." Thomas felt a chill rattle his bones. Hadn't he expected to step into the shadows? But something was sparking inside him. "We want to know. We want to help." The tattooed man raised an eyebrow, his smirk returning. "Help us? It's not that simple. This world can break you. But if you're willing to risk it, I might just show you a way in. But once you're in, there's no turning back." Thomas exchanged another glance with Jake, both of them feeling the palpable weight of the decision ahead. Diving deeper would mean confronting dangers they had never imagined. But their thirst for truth was insatiable. "What's the first step?" Thomas asked, his voice steady despite the storm brewing in his chest. The tattooed man's expression shifted, growing serious again. "You need to understand what you're up against. Trust one T come easy and neither will survival. Just then, the sounds from the bar began to bleed through the walls, growing more chaotic. Thomas felt the tension rise, the stakes suddenly heavier. Could they really handle the truth that lay ahead? Are you ready for this? The tattooed man asked, his sharp eyes digging for a commitment. More than ever, Thomas replied, heart racing as adrenaline pushed him forward. With that, the tattooed man stepped back into the flickering light, revealing a door behind him. The crowd outside roared, but within that roar was an invitation and a warning. Thomas knew they were about to step over a threshold that would seal their fates. What awaited them beyond that door? And would the truth they uncovered be worth the price they would pay? The tension hung thick in the air, leaving Thomas with one burning question: were they truly ready to embark on this dangerous journey? The tattooed man pushed open the door, revealing a hidden staircase winding down into the depths of the tavern, where the air felt alive with secrets and tension. "Follow me," he said, glancing back at Thomas and Jake with an intensity that brought the gravity of the moment crashing down on them. As they descended, the faint sounds of the chaos above became muffled, replaced by the eerie drip of water and distant murmurs that seemed to reverberate in the darkness. Thomas felt a rush of excitement and fear. What were they diving into? "This is where the truth is whispered," the man said, his voice echoing slightly against the damp walls. "But remember, once you enter this world, your choices will define your fate. Are you prepared?" Thomas exchanged a nervous look with Jake. Their earlier bravado felt fragile now, staring down the abyss of unknown dangers. "We're ready. We know what we're fighting for," Thomas asserted, finding conviction in those words. The man chuckled softly, his expression turning serious. "Just know the further you go, the more you'll uncover. You'll need allies, but be wary, not all of them are trustworthy." He paused, then added, "Corruption runs deep, and it never travels alone." They reached a dimly lit room filled with graffiti-covered walls and mismatched furniture. A group of rough-looking individuals gathered around a table, the remnants of a chaotic game laid out before them. The tattooed man stepped forward, commanding their attention. "Listen up. We've got," he gestured toward Thomas and Jake, "two brave souls here who want in on the real game." The tension in the room shifted as eyes narrowed, skepticism evident in the air thick with smoke and uncertainty. One of the men leaned back, arms crossed. "What do you two knuckleheads think you can help us with?" "What we want is to expose the truth, to bring down those profiting from our community's pain," Thomas spoke up, his voice steady despite the burden of doubt weighing heavily on them. Laughter erupted from the group, a mocking reminder of their underdog status. "You think you can take down giants? You think they'll just let you waltz in with your little crusade?" Thomas felt heat rise in his cheeks, but he stood his ground. "We're not backing down from this fight. We'll gather the evidence, expose the corruption. We're here to rally the community." Another man, slimmer but with a sharp gaze, leaned in, intrigued. "You got guts, I'll give you that. But guts alone won't save you. You'll need more than that to open any doors around here." Before he could respond, a chilling silence swept over them as a figure stepped into the room, a woman with fierce eyes and an air of authority that commanded attention. "Guts can only get you so far, boys," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "What you need is cunning. You're sitting on a powder keg, and one wrong move could blow it all up." Jake shifted beside Thomas, uncertainty flickering across his face. "Will you help us?" he asked, desperate to find allies in this mess. The woman studied them, contemplating. "If you can prove yourselves, maybe we could use a couple of brave hearts if you're willing to play the game right." "What's the first step?" Thomas asked, his determination pushing him forward even as his heart raced. "We need intel," she replied. "You've already made a stir with the bar scene. Now it's time to dig deeper, find out who's behind the funding cuts, and we might trace it back to the men pulling the strings." "Where do we start?" Thomas inquired, ready for action. "There's a meet tonight at the old warehouse on the edge of town," she said. "I'll send you the details. Get in close and figure out what's really going on. But be warned, if they catch you cozying up to their plans, there will be consequences. They won't hesitate. Thomas nodded, adrenaline flooding his veins. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. He turned to Jake, and he could see the fire rekindling in his friend's eyes. Together, Jake said firmly, sealing their pact. As the group began discussing their next steps, Thomas felt the weight of the world shift. The stakes were higher than he had ever imagined, but there was a sense of unity forming within them. This wasn't just their fight anymore, it was for their community, their families. The realization hit him like a surge of strength. They were stepping into a greater cause, armed with the truth they sought to illuminate. Let us show them our strength, Thomas declared, feeling a wave of hope wash over him. With each moment they shared in that dim room, they were weaving a new narrative, one of resilience and determination, intertwined with the voices of their community. And as they prepared to face whatever darkness awaited them, it dawned on him, sometimes, in the depths of chaos and struggle, the brightest truths shined best. The fight against corruption had begun. As the night fell, uncertainty still loomed, but it was overshadowed by an undeniable sense of purpose. Whatever the cost, they would rise together. Now it's your moment. Don't wait another second. Subscribe immediately to the channel for more exclusive stories that will inspire you. Hit that like button now to show your support and help the algorithm spread the word. I need to hear from you. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this epic transformation. And share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this fight for truth and justice. True fans know this is the moment to help build our community.